From the roar of the crowd to the roar of the engine, this is Pit Pass.
Pit Pass is brought to you by Jake's Karts and by Buttonwood Campground. Here's your host, Ron Fox.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Pit Pass. You know, we don't get to show much asphalt racing here on the show simply because there aren't that many paved tracks in the state. Now, Lake Erie Speedway is one of the newest tracks in Pennsylvania, as well as one of the finest in the Northeast, if not the country. So let's take a look at some racing action from the track this past Saturday, including the Lake Erie 150. A great crowd was on hand at Lake Erie Speedway to take in a night full of action. So, on to the highlights. In the compacts, we picked things up on a lap 3 restart. Jonathan Breads is on the point in the 95 with the 51 of Jamie Hebner, 34 of Brandon Huffman, and Greg Irish in the 96, all in pursuit of Breads. Moving forward to lap 10, Breads still has the lead as he approaches some traffic, and Hebner does a great job splitting a couple of cars as he tries to run down Breads. But the Lightning McQueen clone of Breads was the class of the field on this night. Here's Jonathan Breads and clan in victory lane. Jamie Hebner held on to second, followed by Huffman, Irish, and Dave McAvoy. Early in the Bandoleros feature, we have Michael Walker in the 81 racing Anthony Reforgiato for the lead. One driver charging from the back of the field was Paul Fusco in the 7. Here he easily gets by the 3 of Jeff Dunphy. Suddenly, Dunphy is going for a spin, along with Darren Waldron in the 97 and Tyler McArdle. After the restart, Reforgiato and Walker mix it up for the lead. There's a little contact, and they would run 1 and 2 for most of the race. On lap 8, Fusco overtakes Melissa Brockman for the 3rd spot and sets his sights on the leaders. Then on lap 10, the 26 pushes up, collecting Fusco as they battle for 2nd place. Down the stretch, Walker would hold off Brody Wood to cross the line first, but Walker was disqualified, handing the win to Wood. Waldron, McArdle, Fusco, and Devin Moore round out the top 5. John Denny in the number 20 would lead the street stocks to the green, but Chris Crossman gets a great jump on the outside to pull even with Denny. Down the backstretch, Crossman gains a slight advantage as they enter turn 3. Through the turn, Denny pulls even with him again at the line. On lap 2, we have a great battle for 4th, but Katie Kaczynski spins to bring out the yellow. After the restart, Denny has a new challenger in the 1 of Jeff Campbell. Denny gets loose off of 4, allowing Campbell to take over 1st place. And behind the 1 is Rich Miller in the 71, who passes Denny for 2nd. On lap 8, the father-daughter combo of Dave and Lexi Wilson are making the 2nd groove work as they pressure the leaders. Lexi is door-to-door with Miller and inching closer to taking 1st from Campbell. On lap 11, Dave Wilson works his way to the inside of Campbell to move up to 2nd, and now has only his daughter separating him from the checkered flag. Here's some close competition as Ryan Corso in the 51 and Miller go at it for the 4th spot. Miller gets loose, enabling Corso to take the position. A late race caution allowed Dave Wilson to close the gap on his teammate, but the Lexinator would end up the victor after 25 laps. Father and daughter enjoy a winner circle celebration with the rest of their crew. Following the Wilsons across the line were Campbell, Corso, and Miller. The Modifieds were the next race on the card for the night. Dave Neubauer in the 5 and the 75 of Bob Fisher raced closely for the top spot. But going down the backstretch, it's a little too close as they get together, collecting a few other cars in the process. So let's try that again, guys. This time they get 1 lap in the books before the yellow flies again for Chris Briggs' stalled car. Let's get back to some actual racing. Here's Ken Moore in the 22 with the lead. Eric McRae in the 32 makes a move to his outside. That opens the door for Carter Mook to not only move up to 2nd, but to challenge Moore for the lead. Coming off of turn 2, Mook gets hooked up on the bottom to take over 1st place. There were 6 cautions in the first 12 laps, so officials shortened the race from 25 laps to 14. That set up a green-white checker finish, with Mook able to hold off McRae for the win. Here's a jubilant Carter Mook as he exits his modified. Ken Moore came home in 3rd, Tim Card was 4th, with John Paul Weiser taking 5th. that's the way to get things started. The crowd giving the command to start your engines to get the Lake Erie 150 rolling. Getting the late model field rolling would be Motordrome regular Bobby Henry in the white and green machine, along with Glenn Galt in the 32. While Galt jumped to the early lead, some drivers such as former champ George Scorer III in the 65 were working their way from deep in the field to the front of the pack. Back up front, it's lap 12 and Greg Hoover is within striking distance of Galt, while Henry and the rest of the field give chase. The caution comes out on lap 20 for a spin involving the 83 of Jake Francis. 2 laps into the restart, Hoover edges by Galt through 3 and 4 to become the second leader of the race. Dave Russell comes to a stop to bring out another yellow on lap 25. Galt is able to retake the lead from Hoover on the restart. Hoover tucks in line to protect second. They would run in that order for a number of laps. Dave Heithaus was a strong contender throughout most of the race. Here he is in the 3rd position behind Hoover. Moving ahead, here are the 11s of Bob Webber and Henry as they run 4th and 5th respectively. Another driver who is always a threat, especially in long distance races, is Will Thomas in the number 9. Here he takes away 7th from Dave Regan. On lap 48, Heithaus works the inside of Hoover, taking away the runner-up spot, but still several car lengths behind Galt. On lap 56, Scorer is to the outside of Jeff Amsdell. Amsdell pushes up a little, sending Scorer spinning. Scott Wiley just misses Scorer's machine. After a lap 64 restart, Galt once again opens up a lead with Heithaus, Webber, Hoover, and Henry as your top 5. Thomas would later reach the top 5 when he gets around Henry going through turns 3 and 4. Back in the pack, Scorer is slowly gaining spots. Here he gets around Brett Gusick. Scott Wiley was running a steady race, hanging right around the top 10. Here he looks for ways to get around Matt Barnt. As we approach the halfway point in the race, Galt is holding a considerable lead over Heithaus. There would be a competition yellow to allow teams to make adjustments to their cars. The question is, can anyone tweak their rides to catch Galt? Certainly Thomas would be a factor. Heithaus was running 2nd at the time of the break. Could he mount a charge? And even though he spun out earlier in the race, don't count out George Scorer. And how about Greg Hoover, who has consistently ran in the top 5 all night? Or could there be an upset from drivers such as Scott Wiley? We will be back with more highlights from Lake Erie Speedway to see if Glenn Galt Jr. can hang on for his 2nd win in the event.